Patrick Lee Farm to School program. We have received funding that will allow us to give out $250,000 to communities through a competitive grant process. Each grant award will range from $10,000 to $4,000. The goals of the program are really to support developing farm to school partnerships, partnerships within a school community, partnerships within between a school and the larger community, and partnerships between community and statewide support organizations. We hope the goal is to develop these farm to school partnerships through the process of implementing farm to school initiatives and activities to strengthen Wisconsin statewide farm to school networks. The funding priorities are to expand on existing farm to school activities and to establish new farm to school activities. These funds are not intended to supplant any other funding for existing programming, as this is a one-time funding, and it's not intended to fund your school meal programs. So through our projects, we hope to build and strengthen or expand farm to school community teams through developing and implementing farm to school projects. We hope to increase school and early care education ECE programming for procurement of locally sourced foods and minimally processed foods. We hope to support projects that increase equitable access to the benefits of farm to school in underserved communities. This is an overarching goal of farm to school on a national level and for Wisconsin. We also are looking to support the ever-growing initiatives for increasing culturally relevant and appropriate locally sourced foods served in food programs that feed students through snack programs or after school programs, ECE, or in your school lunch program. We want to fund activities that incorporate farm to school education into the school food service lunch line, into mealtime, and through snack opportunities. Funding priorities are to implement lessons on farm to school career opportunities for all students, but we're seeing a growing request for initiatives that support high school students in moving into career paths that support farm to school initiatives. We hope to incorporate local food and sustainable agriculture education into core curriculum and elective activities, and build and expand school gardens, school farms, food production, and processing. And finally, we hope to support the promotion of farm to school projects, services, menus to students, staff, families, and communities. So this is a kind of a unique piece for our farm to school grant this year, is that we have eligible activities for funding that can fall in any pillar of, kind of the traditional farm to school range, from ag and nutrition education, garden development, and procurement. So some of those activities could include, like I said, ag and nutrition education, culinary development, food production through school gardens and farms, or in support of farmers that have relationships with your school, or ECE or after school program. Eligible activities would also include promoting farm to school activities that are happening in your community, developing supply chain partnerships, also incorporating composting into your farm to school initiatives. So this could be composting, from your school kitchen, from your cafeteria, in your school garden, or even collaborating with a composting company to manage your food waste. And then lastly, we have farm to school education for school staff and partners. Then we also have supplemental activities, and these activities can are fundable activities, but should not be the focus of your grant proposal. So that would include farm to school team developing, putting your partnerships in place, and food procurement. This funding is limited to 10% of your award going towards food procurement. So it would allow for taste testing, or trying out a harvest of the month activity, or introducing a new food, or establishing your relationship, trying to buy in from a local farmer. So only 10% though, but not to supplement your school nutrition program. So to be considered eligible, applicants must engage in eligible farm to school activities targeted for youth specifically. All projects are required to have 3 or more farm to school partners. And this is that we've seen throughout the state and in the nation that the sustainability of a farm to school project is really important. We've had champions, and we've sought out champions in the past, but what happens is when that champion is gone, then your project doesn't have anybody to lead it, and it tends to be short-lived. And so we are emphasizing a partnership of 3 or more is required for a project, in hopes to continue to build those partnerships. So after that champion has moved on to a different position or has picked something else up, there are other people to carry the project forward. All projects also must include a school food service director or an ECE food authority as one of those partners. So no project will be funded if it doesn't include the school food service or ECE food service component. Some eligible applicants would include K through 12 schools, after-school programs, early care programs, summer nutrition programs, farm businesses, nonprofits, local food businesses, local and tribal governments, and contracted food service management companies. So really a lot of partners are able to apply for a variety of farm to school activities. Some lead partners that are not eligible to apply would be institutions of higher education, hospitals, senior living facilities, hunger relief programs. While we understand that there are hunger relief organizations who participate in farm to school and advance nutrition opportunities for school students in partnership with schools, they cannot be the lead applicant for the farm to school grant. Cooperative extension cannot be a lead applicant, nor can individuals such as parents or teachers. However, obviously you may want to partner with any of these organizations to advance your farm to school project. And we certainly encourage that participation, but they are not eligible applicants. And I'm going to hand over the screen to Andrew, who is going to lead us through some of the financial requirements of this grant.
Yeah, so for this grant, some of the eligible expenses include salary and wages of the staff or partners that are going to have active roles on the grant. If you have to rent or lease space or equipment that is relevant to implementing this project. And then, as April already said, up to 10% of your grant award can be spent on food procurement. And that food procurement should not be just to supplement or subsidize your normal meal preparation or snack preparation. This is really intended to be used for educational, promotional taste test, to trial something out and to learn something through this process, or develop, menu items to develop something. Supplies could include kitchen supplies, or supplies that are going to support farm to school activities. That could be like an outdoor garden supplies, or supplies that are going to like help you achieve your farm to school goals. And then travel is allowable, and that would include vehicle rental or mileage for project related activities. So if your project team needed to go to a farm or something like that, then you could get that covered by the grant. Some ineligible expenses are going to be administrative overhead costs. So that would include indirects. Sometimes people include indirects on a grant. Those are not allowed in this grant project. Equipment purchases, that's $5,000 per unit cost. Any large scale equipment is not allowed, and that includes any kind of rent or lease to own items. And then for that 10% food procurement, those need to be from Wisconsin. So procurement of food from non-Wisconsin sources are not allowed. And as well, food for training or meetings is not allowed. The food that can only be procured must be used as part of the farm to school activities that engage the youth. As April said, has to engage the youth. Then capital expenditures, very similar to equipment over $5,000. So all capital assets or expansions or anything related to construction or capital related items is not allowed. And then travel that includes plane or hotel stays or per diems is not allowed. So grants, as you already know, can range from 10,000 to 40,000, and we're asking that every project provide match that can be cash or in kind. In kind could be if you have your nutrition director or another project partner, which could be a farmer or a buyer, supplier, or a teacher, so they can apply some of their time, the value of their time, to the grant. If you're going to be purchasing something, then it has to be an eligible expense. But if you pay for that out of pocket, then that could be an example of a cash match. And we're setting the cash match of 25% of the award. So if you were awarded at the lowest amount, $10,000, then the match would be $2,500. And if you were awarded the maximum possible project, which is $40,000, then the match would be $10,000. So submission proposals need to be received by 5 p.m. on Friday, February 2nd. Those can be emailed to DATCP DAD grants. That's DATCP DAD grants at wisconsin.gov. That should include all your materials combined and saved as a single file. And the application, we're not putting a limit on word count or page limit. And we just ask that you balance, providing enough detail for us to for reviewers to understand and visualize what your project is trying to accomplish, with that, balancing that level of detail with trying to be to the point and succinct with your writing. We estimate, that we think that 10 pages should be sufficient. And then, as April said, we expect that you have put together some of your farm to school project team for the proposal. And we understand that you might need to, as a supplemental activity, you might need to further, refine and develop that team. And that's a fine supplemental activity. But we're asking that you provide letters of commitment from those partners on your project team which we said was at least 3. And those project partners could be farmers or suppliers, and they could be distributors. They could be community members or other partners in the community. And then additionally, you can provide up to 3 letters of support. So the difference between a letter of commitment and a letter of support, a letter of commitment is going to involve someone that has an active role on the project, on that project team. And so they're going to be talking about what their role is, whether or not they're getting funding or matching is, something that they need to talk about. But even if they're not receiving any money or matching their time, they need to describe what their role is on the project in that letter of commitment. Letters of support, on the other hand, are going to be letters that are they are going to be articulating like a cheerleader that this is valuable and that this is worth funding, and they encourage that this project be funded. But that person or that organization or that business that's writing that letter of support doesn't have an active role in the project. Yeah, we can move on. So for the review process, these are going to be competitively reviewed by a panel of external reviewers, and late proposals or proposals that are incomplete may not be reviewed. And so the points are broken down here. We asked that everyone provide a farm to school background, but we actually gave that a 0-point value because we did not want to penalize someone who's starting a farm to school program and in their community. And that project justification, where you talk about the need or issue or opportunity, 10 points. Talking about who's on your project team, 10 points. External project support is going to be 10 points. When you talk about your work plan, that's going to be all the steps of the things that you're going to do and when you're going to do them and who's going to do them. Those are 15 points. What is the outcome and impact to the youth and the connected community is going to be 15 points. How it's going to be managed, how you're going to get your reports in on time, and then most importantly, how you're going to articulate the need and the impact, because as April had said, the big goal of this pilot program is to generate data and stories about how much there is a need for farm to school programming funding into the future, to have a state funded program. And then evaluation, that includes how you're going to be telling that story of the impact of your farm to school grant. And then 5 points for budget justification. And then there's going to be a 10-point bonus, which I'll talk about here in just a second. So the emphasis, we're trying to give bonus points for projects that are implemented in counties that have high food insecurity needs. So you will get 10 points if you are in the top 25 most food insecure counties, and that's listed to the left in the dark orange. And then if your project takes place in the top 26 to or 50 to 26, then you would get 5-point bonus for that. And it's either going to be, for that particular question, you're either going to get the full 10 points, you're going to get 5 points, or you're not going to get any bonus points.
So as Andrew had said, really and I emphasized earlier, really one of the key outcomes that we're looking for by running this pilot is to gather impact and outcome data so that we can show the needs and opportunities for farm to school development in the state of Wisconsin. So successful grant projects will gather that impact and outcome data. They will measure the demand for this grant program and capture success stories to leverage ongoing support and funding. And I think this can be done in a variety of ways. But one thing that we will do with the information that comes in through the reporting process is it will be published in the DATCP Farm to School annual report, and that will go out to all stakeholders throughout DATCP and state agencies, and out to legislators to really show what we've done with this pilot program and to highlight farm to school activities that are happening throughout the state. So some things, if you are granted a little bit of a timeline here, well, you know, some of this can be a moving target. We think that this is what you can generally expect, that the application period does close on February 2nd, and all applications need to be in by 5 p.m. Contracts will be signed and awards will be announced in March. And then projects can begin, and we will have our kickoff meeting, our first kind of grantee gathering meeting on April 17th. So you can be prepared to start your project mid-April. Then we will have some meetings throughout the course of the grant. We'll do a virtual grantee gathering call in July. We're hoping for one in person, though we'll see how these go, in October during Farm to School Month, and then another grantee gathering in January, and then the projects will close April 30th of 2005. And I think we can open it up to questions. I know that was a lot of information to send your way. So we're happy to take questions and respond to things that may be in the chat.
Yeah, we don't have any questions in the chat right now, but if you do have questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask away. Otherwise, feel free to put them in the chat. We are recording this website. We will post it, or this webinar, we'll post it to the website after, along with the PowerPoint presentation. So feel free to ask any questions that you may have right now.
Hi, this is Addie Ferber. I'm with Reap Food Group, and I wanted to ask, under the eligible expenses and the budget consideration, there's a line in the RFP that I'd just like some clarification. It says that salaries and wages and fringe benefits can be up to 50% of the award amount. And I'd just like you to clarify, one, how that fits in with match, and how it fits in with the overall award amount if there is, yeah, that's, how does the 50% work with a match?
So for that, the 50%, so if you were to get the full amount, we just didn't want the majority of the funds going just to pay someone's time. So if you had $40,000 award, then up to $20,000 that would be available for salary and fringe. And then you could also, you know, have more salary and fringe applied on top of that if you wanted to use some of that as match. But the award.
Okay, so thank you. So match is, so 20,000 of, we could receive up to $20,000 if we were requesting the full 40, we could get up to 20 in grant compensated salary, but have additional work being done on the grant through matching.
Right.
Thank you.
Great. We do have another question about match in the chat, Andrew, and it says, are federal funds allowed for the match?
They are not. And so that also includes AmeriCorps members, since they're federally funded. Even though this grant is coming out of the state, we're using federal funds for the pilot program. So we cannot use federal funds to match federal funding for this pilot program.
Great, thank you.
Thanks. I also have a follow-up to that. For the partners, do they also need to be included in the budget, or is there a requirement that the partners are receiving some of the funds?
There's not a requirement. You could if you wanted to. We just want their role to be, documented through letters of commitment. And, those letters of commitment should come on, should be formatted. It's pretty standard, but it should be put together on something with letterhead or something that identifies it's from them, should be signed, dated, that kind of thing. And if they're not receiving any funds and they're already an active member in your farm to school efforts or committed to doing that, they might be a good source of match, even if they're not receiving funding. But it could be a combination of both of those things, like they receive some funding and also help you achieve some match.
Thank you.
Great. Another question that came into the chat was, does travel compensation, including busing fees for field trips to community farms?
April, do you want to respond to that one? I can't remember exactly. I feel like if that would be allowed.
Yes.
You had mentioned something about school food service had to be included in the grant. That had to be one of the partners. Can you tell me what level of school food service has to be included in the grant? I'm Lisa from Food Right in Milwaukee, and to get all the way to the top of MPS would be kind of difficult for a $40,000 grant. So I'm wondering, can it be just a food service director in one of our partner schools? Or I know we have private schools as well. So can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, it needs to be a school food service director.
Director.
Yep, that works. And we understand the layers. But for the the school food service director, they may need, some authority to participate in a grant by their administration. So while they can sign on, just if there are school food service directors on the call, I would say, certainly clear that you can be a signer for a letter of commitment.
I'm still a little unclear, April. So it has to be the
Yeah.
school food director, Milwaukee school food director. Omar has to be the person that signs.
I would check with them if they have to be a signer, but it does have to be somebody who can make decisions about implementing activities in the cafeteria, right?
Okay. But I'm just going to keep asking about this one because like our vision is that we would grow the food, because we grow food at our school gardens, and we can grow them through hydroponics. And then of course there's a policy that allows the food that can be from the school can be implemented into the school meal service. And it doesn't have to go through the head office when it does that. That's what I understand the rule to be. So do I still have to have Omar sign off on that, even though he's not really necessarily the person that would sign off on the food that's grown in the school to go into the school meal service? Do you understand my question?
Yeah, so the person who's making decisions on the food that's accepted or not accepted into that service line, I think would be the person that you would want to be working with.
Okay. And I don't want to just dominate it, but I want to ask one more question.
Keep
about
going.
it.
Keep going, because I have a lot of these same questions, Lisa. Thank you.
So, I know it's DATCP there's a policy that says that they can enter. Now, that the school food service director believes that or not is a different story altogether. And so we're going to be working on trying to educate our school, like each of the school food directors at each of our schools, to make sure that they understand that locally grown food, the food from the school, can be implemented in the school meals program. So should we just, that's our goal. That's really the goal that we have for this grant, is that we want to get hydroponic units or, expand our school gardens so that we can get that food into the school meals program. So would it be okay? They're individuals and they can say like, okay, we'll support it. That's all I need is from them to say like, but they would probably hesitate because they're going to be low-level employees to say that they would sign off on it. So do you understand? Like there's a law, but there's who's in charge?
I think that that is a question for that school district, and who they allow to sign and who they don't, and who's allowed to make those decisions and who's not. I think that that's not a DATCP requirement, but something that the school food service people that you're working with should know about the.
So if I wanted to work around it, I would just have to go to like I have several private parochial schools too. And they have a much smaller school food service, so I could just go to them and say, like, this is what we're planning to do. Do you support that? And they'd say, okay. That's a workaround.
I can't speak for the school.
But no, I'm saying, like, you know what I mean? Like, so you would accept the school food service director on a smaller scale, like from smaller schools,
Yeah,
Okay.
and potentially the person who is receiving food into that particular school, as long as they're making sure that they're of authority to do that, which I think that perhaps some people from DPI maybe could inform that end of things a little bit more. But yes, you just want to make sure that all of your partners that are participating are signing a letter of commitment that, like, yep, we support this project and we are participating in it.
Okay.
I see that Sarah has her hand up.
Ooh. Hi there. This is maybe an odd question. I don't know if anyone has broached this subject. Moving young people around where there's opportunity, is transportation an allowable expense?
Yes, it is allowable expense.
Thank you.
Great. There was a couple questions in the chat. I will just read through. Does the applicant have to be a nonprofit?
No, the applicant does not have to be a nonprofit. It could be a for-profit business. It could be a school, an after-school program, an ECE program, summer meal programs. It can be a local or tribal government can apply. So anyone in a community other than, say, an individual or institution of higher education. There were a couple in the slide earlier that can't apply, but the goal is that we understand that schools are quite busy and understaffed, and it may take somebody else in a community to manage a grant. So anybody in a community that's engaging farm to school activities can be the lead applicant, with the exception of those few that we had laid out as non-applicants.
Great, thank you. The next question in the chat is, if the program is an after-school program, not a food service program, can the letter of support be from another program director or superintendent?
All applicants need to have a partner that is a school food authority or an ECE or summer program authority. So it does need to include that partner, even if it is an after-school program.
Great. That is all of the questions in the chat as of now. Is there anyone else that would like to unmute and ask any questions they may have? I don't see anyone unmuting at the moment. So maybe if we want to go to the next steps, and then if anyone else has a question, please just raise your hand and we will, we have plenty of time. We still have 20 minutes. And so we're here to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, so for next steps, we have a couple of office hours scheduled in January, one on Tuesday, January 16th at 1 o'clock, and one on Friday, January 26th at 9 a.m. The meeting link is there. It's a Zoom link. So if you click on that, you can enter the meeting. It's just an open conversation to answer any questions that you have about your project development or the grant application process, or if you want to connect with others and, learn about, what they're trying to do with their farm to school project development. And then just a reminder here that all applications are due by Friday, February 2nd, 2024 at 5 p.m. So those would be our very next steps.
And I did put in the chat the link to register for those office hours as well. So that's easy to access. We did have another question come in about cash match. And it's, they slid away on me. It says, these questions would be for you, Andrew. When does that cash match have to be submitted?
The cash match, I mean, the expense should happen during the life of your project. So after you have that contract signed, if awarded. And then, you know, it should be submitted with some of your regular reports. So if you're doing a reimbursement request, you would be also, you know, providing the documentation for that match, whether it's cash or income.
Oh, and then I see that you did respond in the chat, just a little behind. So it's expenses that can occur throughout the life of the grant, not upfront, which is correct. There was another question. The slides will be available after the meeting. We'll upload the recording along with the PowerPoint to the Farm to School portion of our DATCP website. So you'll be able to find both there. I would assume it would happen in the next couple of days. So the next question was, the USDA Farm to School grant program is also open. Are we eligible to apply for both awards for different projects?
Yes, for sure.
But definitely I'd love to see Wisconsin have some USDA Farm to School awarded projects, but you couldn't use this project as match with a USDA Farm to School grant. They could complement each other. They could even work in tandem, but you couldn't use one to help the other as far as the match goes.
Great, thank you. Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll give you 15 minutes of your day back. But please do, if you have further questions, reach out to anyone on the question slide that for the email addresses we provided and attend our office hours. So thank you all for joining us, and we look forward to hopefully receiving a lot of applications. So
Thanks, everyone.
thank you.
Thanks.